Now it's time for 3x3 Experiment by JCD, comparing stories from ABC, CBS, and NBC. The never-ending 3x3.
China in the spotlight beyond the Olympics will look at human rights, repression, and moves against democracy. Tonight, the athletes of the world began to step into the Olympic spotlight, their stories now taking center stage, a moment that comes none too soon for China's communist government, which has faced sharp criticism in the lead-up to these games over its human rights record. China, with its rich history, culture, and now modern face, is again in the Olympic spotlight.
Beijing.
14 years after wowing the world as host of the 2008 Summer Olympics, China is richer and more assertive on the world stage. But with the 2022 Games beginning just hours ago, China is still struggling to race past criticism of its human rights record. The United States late last year announcing a rare diplomatic boycott of the Games. The UK, Canada, and Australia among those following suit.
U.S. diplomatic or official representation would treat these games as business as usual in the face of the PRC's egregious human rights abuses and atrocities.
Should China have been awarded the Olympic Games?
No.
Yacho Wang is with Human Rights Watch, which accuses the Olympic Committee of silence and helping China mask its abuses and its march toward greater repression since it hosted the 2008 Games. How is dissent and protest dealt with in China?
You can be harassed, surveilled, you can be thrown into jail for saying something critical.
Can you disappear?
Yeah, obvious. Yeah, just regular citizens have gone to the black hole of the Chinese justice system, and we don't hear from them anymore.
Others have seemingly been removed from the public eye, most notably tennis star Peng Shuai, who has been seen only fleetingly since her sexual harassment allegation against a former senior Communist Party official last year. The International Olympic Committee became involved, participating in a video call with Peng aimed at establishing her well-being. China says she's fine, but critics dismiss it as a photo op. Now, IOC officials will meet her again at the Games. But China faces its biggest international blowback over treatment of its Muslim Uyghur population. The U.S. calls it genocide, saying more than 1 million Uyghurs are in mass detention in the country's northwestern Xinjiang province, citing reports of forced sterilization, rape, torture, and forced labor. Accusations China says are nothing but vicious lies by anti-China forces. In 2019, NBC News correspondent Keir Simmons was granted rare but government-supervised access to camps that China calls educational vocational centers. Many Uyghurs are held there in detention for acts outsiders might not think twice about.
Why are you here?
For attending an illegal preaching, he tells me.
This disturbing video, which the U.S. State Department thinks is authentic, shows detainees shackled and blindfolded. The U.S. believes thousands have disappeared. Chinese officials declined our request for interviews about the centers, but in press statements claim they're countering violent terrorism and separatism. Defenders of the International Olympic Committee say its decision to try to push past these controversies is consistent with the spirit of the Games. No place, the IOC president says, for politics.
If everybody respects that the Olympic Games must be beyond all political disputes. In this way, the Olympic Winter Games 2022 can set another great example for a peaceful competition.
And then there is Hong Kong. A former British colony returned to China in 1997. But an imposition of strict national security laws 2 years ago has eroded many of Hong Kong's previous Western-style freedoms.
Hong Kong people have experienced freedom for so many years, and they're losing it.
Ronson Chan's pro-democracy newspaper shut down.
This is a situation that we never imagined before.
The aggressive new push led by China's president.
What's happened under Xi Jinping, though, is we're seeing a reversion to a much more repressive model. He may have been worried that as economic growth inevitably slowed, the only way to keep control was to increase repression.
China also defending against what the Biden administration has called a lack of transparency over the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic. President Xi has associated himself closely with these games with the hope that as they begin, the world's attention turns away from controversy and instead toward the athletes and the competition at hand. That's NBC.
Let's turn now to China, where the Winter Olympics are underway in Beijing. Athletes from 91 countries took part in the shortened opening ceremony due to COVID. The pandemic and China's human rights abuses are getting as much attention as the athletes. CBS's Jamie Yuccas is covering the Olympics for us in Beijing.
The ceremony was a spectacle unto itself, culminating in a massive fireworks display that turned Beijing's night sky into a glorious spectrum of color. But optics aside, the kickoff of the 24th Winter Olympiad was muted by politics and a pandemic that left the stadium less than half full. 2 Chinese skiers lit the Olympic cauldron before a crowd without any American diplomats, absent in a show of protests against China's record on human rights. Curling legend John Schuster and speed skater Brittany Bowe were flag bearers for Team USA. Bobsledder Alana Myers-Taylor, a first-generation American immigrant, had been chosen by her teammates for the honor, but was in a Chinese isolation hotel instead, having tested positive for COVID. We spoke to her before the ceremony.
We've been on the road since November 10th and never came back to the U.S. for fear of catching COVID. So to get it here, it was pretty devastating.
Finish it a little bit. COVID hangs heavily over these Olympics, with athletes fearing they are just one positive COVID test away from being barred from the games.
Good choice here by Amanda Kessel.
But competition is underway, and already there is heartbreak. USA women's hockey, heavily favored to win a medal, defeated Finland in the preliminary round, only to lose top forward Brianna Decker to injury. But in team figure skating, Nathan Chen led the Americans into first place today, 2 points ahead of the team from Russia after the first round.
The first medals will be awarded today. Team USA cross-country superstar Jessie Diggins has her first race, while Team USA women's hockey will take on the Russian team without their star forward. Nora.
That'll be worth watching. Jamie Yuccas, thank you.
In Beijing tonight, the Winter Olympics kicking off under the shadow of COVID and a multi-nation diplomatic boycott. Fireworks during the opening ceremonies, they were something. Athletes from 87 countries taking part in the Parade of Nations. A setback, though, for the U.S. women's hockey team already. Star Brianna Decker out for the rest of the games after a serious injury during their opening victory over Finland.
Stupid as shit.